Yeah, there you are. Looking good too. Right on. Thank you. Yeah. Hey, and just real
Okay,
quick, if you don't mind, I was just gonna do a couple
excellent.
house cleaning things.
So let me know. I think I'm ready.
Yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know that next month we'll be back on premises. It's going to be a collaborative panel meeting with IAPP San Diego and ourselves reviewing the ISACA Privacy and Practice Survey. Neil Packard will be one of the panelists. Matt Stamper will be moderating. Justine Phillips is a panelist, and Aparna, our chapter secretary, will be a panelist, and and Melissa Burwell on behalf of IAPP will be joining us. So that will be on site and online. Look forward to having everybody, seeing everybody there. And I just wanted to take a moment to introduce Dr. Baljeet and Nicole. Super excited to have you here. Very much appreciate it. For those of you that are not aware, Dr. Baljeet's joining us from Canada. That's why we did this online. And this is actually a presentation that we started talking about doing, gosh, almost about a year ago. And then when things changed with going back to on-premise and the other speakers and stuff, it just kept getting a little delayed and a little delayed. But today's our day, so super excited, super appreciative to have you here. And if there's anybody here that would like to reach out to him or on behalf of yourself as an individual, perhaps as an academic organization, academic institution or an organization, please reach out. We're trying to break down walls, bring people together as much as possible. And then I was also told chat is disabled. My apologies on that. And other than that, please just post any questions you have in the Q&A section, and we'll touch on them through there. Beyond that, sir, I'd like to hand the microphone over to you. And again, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave, and my sincere apology for the delay. As I mentioned, I was changing office today, and looks like there are some issues with internet, but as long as you can hear me fine, you can see me okay, you can see my presentation, I think we can get started. So first of all, thank you so much, Dave and Nicole, to both of you for putting this together. Let me start with a quick intro about myself. I'm the founder and CEO of TeejLab. I am running the show for last 5 years or so at TeejLab. But before that, I was with different companies in different roles, primarily focused on cybersecurity related topics. In particular, at Black Duck Software, my team was responsible for building open source risk management solution. And before that, I was with SAP, where my team was responsible for, once again, open source usage across SAP products and services. Before that, I was with academia. I still continue to work very closely with academia. As a matter of fact, I have several adjunct positions, so I heavily get involved with research projects and so on and so forth. In full disclosure, unlike many of you who specialize in audit compliance, that's what ISACA is known for. My specialization is not audit and compliance. My focus has always been on data science and data management. It just happens that to be the case that for the last 15 years or so, I'm applying this training, with data science, data management technologies with risk management issues. In particular, at TeejLab, I've been looking into API risk management, which is the topic today. So this is how we are going to spend some time together. First, I want to start by talking about API ecosystems. And I want to share some results from a global perspective, how these APIs are shaping up today's digital economy. And as these ecosystems evolve at the global level, they have impact on the enterprises as well. So I'm gonna talk about what changes enterprises are experiencing. Then I will discuss one particular model that you might have actually heard of recently, Zero Trust, which is a kind of a framework for us to use for risk management. Just give me 1 second. Sorry, so my IT member was helping me fix my issues, so he needed my attention quickly. But thank you so much. Yeah, so then I'm going to talk about this model, how we can take inspiration from this model and apply for API risk management as well. So that's basically how we're going to spend time. But I really encourage you to participate in this. I think Dave has now allowed to ask questions. I'm not sure if you can ask questions live through audio, but you don't have to wait until the end of the presentation to ask questions. So feel free to interrupt me, ask questions. I don't mind being interrupted as I present these questions if some concepts are important for you. So let's get into the details. You very much understand APIs. I believe many of you have at least heard about it. APIs are connecting our digital applications all across different business units and globally as well. As shown on this example, you see enterprise applications, payment gateways, social media channels, they're all connected through APIs. And one distinction I want to make here is, I'm not talking about APIs that are available local. I'm talking about web APIs. APIs have been existing for decades, but this topic is mainly about web APIs, which is kind of a service that is available over the internet as a HTTP protocol-based service or other mechanisms applied, for example, REST. So you can think of all those APIs. So why we care about APIs and why you should care about APIs as an auditor or a compliance expert or a cybersecurity expert. To inspire you, I'm comparing the growth of websites with the growth of APIs. Now, this blue curve represents how the web grew. All the way from early 90s to now, it has grown from hundreds of thousands to millions and perhaps billions of pages. APIs are very much in the same context philosophically because they provide information. But you can imagine they are built for machine-to-machine communication. For example, a payment gateway, it is providing some information, transacting dollar values, or Twitter API giving you social media feeds. Now, they are not at the same level in terms of number, but we believe, and the research shows that they're going to grow to the same scale as well. Right now, we as an API management company, we are tracking these APIs at a global scale, and we know that they are into thousands in our knowledge base that I will share in a minute. We are tracking them from different industries, different geographies, different sectors. They are in thousands. But we believe that they're going to grow into millions and perhaps billions. And you can see the reason behind it. IoT, smart vehicles, smart houses, wherever there is a data, which is already moving into the cloud and software is moving into the cloud. You need this connectedness that comes through those APIs. So you will see this space expanding a lot. And it has impact on enterprises, which I will talk in a minute. Another way to understand the situation is, look at this number, 83%. You believe it or not, but 83% of the internet traffic is actually being contributed by web APIs. The rest of the traffic is your regular HTML pages and whatnot. So it's a mind-boggling number. But it is also important from a cybersecurity point of view, because each of those APIs that are transacting data, that's also door to your information system. So when an API is built that is connected to your network or systems, that's like a door to your information systems. And if it is not secure, it could cause many kinds of issues. I also want you to look at the enterprise view. So the enterprise view may look something like this. You have applications at the bottom, you have different tools, you have scanning capabilities, you have different analytical capabilities. They're all connected through APIs. If you look at the right-hand side, you have API gateways and service meshes, essentially to access control your APIs, going out, coming in. On the left-hand side, you see a marketplace. And it could be your own internal marketplace because you have built APIs for your customers and partners to consume those APIs. Or you could actually be a consumer of API as well. So you might be consuming those APIs from those marketplaces from your customers and partners. If you move up in this diagram, you see different stakeholders, developer teams that are responsible for building, integrating APIs, security folks, procurement team, because if you're buying licenses, they're responsible for managing the vendor relationship, compliance teams, M&A due diligence experts. So they are all concerned about this API ecosystem. Now, let me take you even deeper inside this ecosystem. What kind of APIs we see in this ecosystem? Dave, looks like somebody raised a hand. Maybe there is a question.
Yeah, and that was my hand.
Okay.
But you mentioned that you guys are tracking these and the growth of them.
Correct.
Can you share how you do that, or?
Yeah, happy to do that. I will actually give a quick demo towards the end.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, great. So thank you, Dave, for the question. So now we want to go deeper inside this. We want to understand what kind of APIs these are, because as an auditor or as a compliance expert, you understand that it's all about understanding your ecosystem better, having a nomenclature that defines things in a better way so that you can formulate policies accordingly. Because if you don't even understand your API ecosystem, how are you going to formulate the policy? And let me throw the challenge here, what the challenge is. If you look at the left-hand side, I'm calling them external APIs. So these are APIs that you depend upon. You took it from your external partners. But these could also be APIs that you expose to your external customers and partners. These are your APIs. So now if you move in the middle, you have internal APIs. So these are APIs that you build for your internal digital transformation, to break the data silos between your different teams and business units. One way to, do things efficiently is not ship your data in emails or Dropboxes. You build APIs and streamline the processes. So those could be your internal APIs. But internal APIs could also be privately given to you by your external partners simply because you requested them, look, I like what you guys do, but I don't want your dashboard. I don't want your workflow. I just want your data or intelligence that I can integrate with my workflow. So those partners can give you internal APIs that are not publicly available, but then your obligation to protect those APIs are equally as much as they have. Right? You do not want these customers to be upset if you leak those APIs. And the last category is, by the way, if you pay attention, what is external, what is internal could be very confusing, right? So on top of that, you may have APIs that are actually unknown to you, and you may ask me, Baljeet, how is that possible? One reason is you may be buying companies, you may be acquiring assets. Your developers may be downloading GitHub from open source projects. And research has shown, as I mentioned, I led the R&D team at Black Duck Software. We had learned that 80 to 90% of applications are built using open source. Open source has very much become an industry de facto standard to build applications. You name any application, there is an open source for that. So now, if you put this together, what is internal, what is external, what is free, what is open, this could all be very confusing, but you got to start somewhere as an auditor, as in a compliance. To put a handle on your API risk management, you must start with, formulating, okay, what kind of assets we have, who's interacting with what, who owns these APIs, are these external, are these internal? So this is a good starting point for you to start formulating your policies. Now, let's proceed further. I just don't want you to look at these APIs as an asset. I want you to look at these APIs as a challenge to your data governance problems as well. Because at the end of the day, these APIs are transacting data. So in all fairness, these APIs are very much part of your data governance framework as well. So if you look at this picture, you see these dots, all these dots represent an API or a vendor that is hosted in that country. And you can imagine if you have hundreds of vendors, maybe thousands of APIs integrating those vendors all across your system, you can see how data crosses different geographies and boundaries, which have implications on your governance. Now let's look at the risk. Now the risk essentially come from the fact that the APIs can be compromised. Okay, and there are a lot of security companies out there figuring out these problems. But let me show you this particular case we detected in which this API was leaking credit card information. And of course, I'm hiding the sensitive information, but here they were not just giving us the credit card details and expiration, but also the security codes that will allow us to do the transaction. Now, they must have built this API in the spirit of, okay, somebody needs this data to carry on the transaction, but we should not be seeing some of the information here. We wanted to do this more. We wanted to go beyond just sets of APIs. We wanted to see what's the state of the art in the industry, what kind of problems are being faced, what kind of compromises are happening with these APIs. So we looked at National Vulnerability Database. So if you're familiar with the NVD or National Vulnerability Database or NIST that is responsible for managing that, we looked at all the vulnerabilities, then we mapped those vulnerabilities to API specific problems. Authentication problems, authorization problems, injection problems. And we found that authentication and authorizations were the top two problems that are affecting these APIs all across the system that we were seeing. And as I will show in my zero trust model, that these are two important recommendations made by that model as well. As a matter of fact, OWASP, which is another organization like ISACA, but their focus is on cybersecurity, more on application security, mobile security, or API security. So these top 10 recommendations were actually made by them. And interestingly, authorization and authentication is also in their top 5 recommendations. And we found that this is very consistent with what others are recommending, what we are seeing on the ground. So this really sums up. Now, the question is, you may not be looking into the security problems. You as an auditor, you perhaps as a compliance or risk manager, you want to understand what is the business impact. Okay, so of course, we agree that there could be problems with APIs, there may be compromise, there may be authentication, authorization problems, but how does that impact my business? That is what we want to understand now. So security problems, if APIs are compromised, we know there is a direct impact on data breaches and all that, which could lead to legal issues and whatnot, especially if your API was leaking credit card information or your customer information that are sensitive. You do not want those legal actions against you. The financial risk, operational risk, are a bit more tedious to understand. Let me share some examples. If there is an API that is transacting dollar value, and let's say this is an API that is enabling your checkout or e-commerce functionality on your website. Now, if that API goes down, you directly have impact on your bottom line. Even if those transactions are down by 1 day, you can imagine you are incurring losses. But is that it? Are there APIs that are not transacted dollar value can have a financial impact? And the answer is yes. And let me give you an example. So for instance, let's say you're a marketing company or digital transformation company that enables products and services, understanding sentiment behind products or go-to-market strategies. And let's say you depended on certain social media feeds, let's say Twitter API. And if that API goes down into your product functionality, each tweet that you are using in your system, which is computing some sentiment or collecting data, actually ultimately has impact on the business you do. right? So although it's not transacting dollar value, but that is your business. That is exactly what you're doing. So if that feed goes down, there is no value to your product, right? So ultimately, it impacts your bottom line. Similarly, operational risk, interesting story to share with you. I was part of a team that used to conduct due diligence. You know, when we would go buy companies, my team would go and conduct the technical due diligence, essentially scanning applications, looking at open source risks, licensing risks, vulnerabilities, and whatnot. In this particular case, we had bought a company, like quite a big transaction, approximately $500 million. In this case, we essentially bought the company, everything went well, and 6 months down the road, we realized that this application was choking. And the long story short is that there were a bunch of APIs that were going into the loop simply because there were rate limits. And the reason was, this was a small startup. And when we bought this company, now this needed to scale to a larger ecosystem. And suddenly we realized that, oh, we did not even know who the vendors are. Do we have a commercial agreement in place? If we had it, we could simply ask them to increase the rate limits and so on and so forth. Believe it or not, in that single product, we eventually discovered 5,000 different API integrations we had no idea that existed. And forget about the entire product and services, forget about the entire company, right? So scraping scripts, just going on to a Joe developer's API, integrating it, getting some data. It was a SaaS product. Not every product may have the same problem or capabilities, but you can imagine a lot of applications are moving into the cloud. So that connectedness will be there, and you will see many of those cases. Anyways, so the operational risk here was not that we had a direct security threat, we had a direct legal threat. It was more about operational nightmare. Ultimately, it led to the financial loss as well, because 6 months, we spent another 6 months or so conducting another set of due diligence, making sure the product, is to the standard and integrate and all that. Similarly, regulatory risks can come over a period of time. They don't come, let's say, on daily basis or monthly basis. Perhaps you're conducting an audit and you have to launch a product, and you need to meet certain compliance goals before you launch the product. And suddenly they realize that the auditors are asking you, show me your SBOM. And also not just the SBOM, but also the SaaS SBOM. And you fail to disclose your third party where the servers are hosted. Those API transactions that are happening, and you miss your objectives. So the long story short is that API vulnerabilities could occur. We acknowledge that they will have those deficiencies, but they will have different kinds of business impact on us. And the idea here is to identify how we can assess those risks. How can we classify those risks? Because at the end of the day, it's all about prioritization. If there is an API vulnerability that is impacting my bottom line immediately, I want to fix that than the other problems that are out there. Okay, so what kind of models we can use? What kind of frameworks we can use to mitigate those risks? So one very quick model that comes to my mind is a zero trust, which has 7 core principles that you treat your data, software and applications as a resource, and you must secure those resources through secure communication networks. The third principle is, when you are giving access to those resources, the sessions must be, the access must be sessional. It's not that you have access to some resources at all times. For example, when you log into some session or log into some systems, they expire in a day or two. So having that approach across your resources is important. You need to have policies that are dynamic. And we see that all the time. When you log in to your email system, you change your geography, you travel, the system asks you to authenticate. So that's what it is all about. Now, monitoring is also very important. You may have policies, you may have secure channels, you may have sessional approaches, but you still need to monitor the security posture of your systems. And last here, which I was mentioning, you must authenticate and authorize. You must enforce that. And the authentication is which resource, which systems you get access to. Once you are authenticated, then other authorization enables what privileges you have to access which resources in that system. So just because you're authenticated, that doesn't mean you're authorized to access everything. So that's the difference there. And last but not the least here, regardless of all those principles in place, you must still collect additional pieces of information. That's basically looking into these core principles. And if you want to read more about this, you are welcome to refer to these resources that I've listed here. These are reports by NIST and Cloud Security Alliance, very much like ISACA organization. Their focus is on cloud security. Now, we can see that how we can map these principles for API risk management as well. So we must treat our APIs as products. As a matter of fact, companies that are providing these API management solutions, pretty much they want you to treat your APIs as an asset, as a product. In many cases, companies are built and provide those APIs. That's what they do. They don't have GUI dashboards. Some of the great examples, Twilio, Twitter, they can provide all those functionalities through APIs. So that's their product. Now, once you start treating those APIs, then everything falls in place. You need to have a secure channels through which those APIs are communicating. No HTTP based, but they should all be HTTPS. If you want to build encryptions or protect data, that's fine, but at least you should have some basic ground covered. Then you also have sessional approaches. For example, when you are authenticating API usage, maybe you used API key based. If key is expired, then you don't have access. Similarly, you may have different authentication mechanisms. For example, OAuth tokens, but they also have expirations. So the idea here is whenever you're enabling access to your APIs, keep the sessional approach in mind. Your policies must also be dynamic. For example, let's say your API key was stolen, and suddenly this key is used somewhere else geographically where it was created. Now, do you have the capability to detect if this is the case? Because in many cases, if you're not having those dynamic policies in place, then it could lead to certain issues. So there can be all kinds of dynamic policies, but those are some of the examples I could think of right now. So you need to monitor the security posture of APIs. Similarly, as I mentioned, you are doing this for your other resources, for APIs as well. Who's using those APIs at what time, what privileges you have, and how they're being used. There could be a pattern that you want to track. API authentication authorization is, again, very important topic. And you can see that this topic is a very important topic. Maybe this deserves a talk of its own, but maybe we can keep that for future discussion. Last but not the least, you need to constantly monitor your API usage and collect additional pieces of information for that usage. And the reason is, even though you may have dynamic policies in place, your resources are protected through sessional approaches or authentication authorization, and you're monitoring them, but all of that may still not be enough. Why? Because security is always a moving target problem. And the way hackers could be using your APIs, or even if they are authenticated users, they can still abuse your APIs. The reason is, I could very much go on any API portal, register, get access to APIs. If it is not rate limited, then I can start to do certain things in a way that will perhaps reveal intellectual property in a way that could be a business threat to the organization. So the point is, all those principles that are in place may still not be enough. So in the case of what could be that additional information you can collect? So idea is, can you collect the API responses? Can you collect the API parameter values that you are injecting to get those responses. So now let's look at how we build a program that can put all those principles together for our risk management program. So here I'm showing you 5 key pieces of this program. The very important piece is the discovery. You need to discover your APIs. And I'm not just talking about discovering APIs that you know, but that you did not know, but also finding the licensing security issues of your APIs that you already know. So once you discover those, you need to identify and track those issues on constant basis, because it's not just one-time due diligence, because your API ecosystem may evolve, your data may evolve upon which your APIs are functioning. So you need to constantly evaluate and track these issues. Since your API ecosystem that I showed earlier is quite complex from a stakeholder perspective, you need to alert different stakeholders. For example, your licensing colleague may not necessarily be interested in the security aspect. He or she may be interested in, tell me, has the terms of services changed for this API? Because this vendor is very restrictive. And although we have a commercial agreement in place with them, but if their terms of services have changed, I want to make sure that we are compliant, So all those different aspects you can imagine, that you need to alert to different stakeholders. Last but not the least, you have to recommend certain solutions to those problems. The solution could be as simple as, for example, if you detected there is an API that is hosted in Europe, you never knew that, because at the end of the day, you were simply using the URI integrated into your application, and you had no idea the data was being transacted there. So the solution could be just asking DevOps team to move that deployment to wherever you want it. So, or the complex solution could be you found a injection problem, or you found a broken authorization problem in your API implementation that you want to fix it, basically sending it back to the product and engineering teams. So this is Dave, what you asked me. So if you want to know more about APIs and legal risks and security topic that I'm touching upon, all different ideas. One good way for you to get a good handle on this is I'm listing some of the largest repository, including ourselves, in terms of number of APIs you can see across different industries. To be fair and give you an opportunity to explore more, I'm listing other repositories as well. Some of them are marketplaces, some of them are tools, but they have a good chunk of APIs into their ecosystem that you can do. But many of them, they do not necessarily have compliance or licensing related or security related information that you may be interested in. So since we have that in our system, and as Dave requested, if I can show some examples, I would love to jump into a quick examples to give you that scenario. But let me take a quick pause here, Dave. Are there any questions from the audience or from you? I know I went fast, really fast. My apologies if there were some concepts I did not go into deep, but I'm happy to answer any questions right now.
I had a couple questions for you. I don't see any from any of the attendees, and if you do, as an attendee, please go ahead and drop it in the Q&A, and we'll make sure it gets addressed. But question for you is, like what you're sharing, I'm interpreting it as how one can build and manage a secure API. Do you have any recommendations for how an organization can check the security of one's, from like a third party?
Yeah, great question. So there are certain things you can do, as I will show, that will allow you to see third-party APIs, security posture, perhaps legal posture. But unfortunately, if this is an API that you did not build, then there are certain things you cannot do. For example, they may not like it if you start doing injection test on their API or try to break their API through different tools. But you can do whatever you can, and I will show you a quick scenario where you can look at where this API is hosted, what kind of authentication framework they are using. If they are transacting their API key in the URL to enable the authentication, that's not a good practice. Maybe they should not do that way. So there are certain best practices we can take and see if these third-party APIs, they are applying those best practices to be more informed about their posture.
Do you know, or if you can share any resources that an organization might be able to find those best practices? Because I think what you're talking about is very cutting edge or less mature than a lot of other things that we run into.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I will be happy to send you some links. So OWASP Top 10 Security, actually Government of Canada has its own recommendations for API security. NIST has its own. So there are some best practices we can. But we as a company, we are also providing those recommendations. So
Gotcha.
my demo, I will include it, and happy to share that all the members can actually get access to the system that I'm going to show, and the account is for free for them to, as long as they are learning from it. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute because I will switch to a browser now and give you quick demos around some of the areas I touched upon.
And while you're bringing that up, I do see, Dorothy, that you've got your hand raised. I don't know if we can hear you or if we need to ask that you put that in the Q&A. But if you can there, either way, definitely work to get your question answered. Gotcha. Okay. That was raised in error. In the same way I kept my hand raised in error for a while there. So thank you.
I will be done in 30 seconds.
Sure.
I'm just trying to log in.
Can I ask you a question while you're doing that?
Yeah, please.
Earlier when you were kind of putting APIs in the buckets of public, internal, and hidden, are those industry standard or like or something that you guys use more internally within your organization to classify?
Yeah, that's a good question. There is no specific way you can categorize them. You can categorize them according to vendors, geographies, and whatever criteria you may have. But we are kind of defining those best practices. If depending on your inventory, depending on your larger ecosystem, these things could vary. So I'm almost ready to show you.
And then we did just get a question of, I'll read you that while you're bringing that up. Treating API like assets makes sense. Are you seeing this as a trend? What percentage of companies are managing them this way?
I would say pretty much every organization that I talk to, nobody resists that idea. API companies that enable organizations to build those APIs, they are already promoting this as a product development tools. So the short answer to your question is absolutely yes. there seems to be a consensus around API needs to be treated as product. Anyway, so coming back to the demo, Dave.
Yeah.
So if you go to our website, TeejLab.com, it will take you to the website and you will see a sign up button at the top. You guys are welcome to sign in, get access to the platform, and or you can watch me what I'm doing. That's fine as well. You can sign in using your Google Gmail ID or Microsoft ID, whichever whichever you have, or you can sign in using the regular way, which is just long form. You provide your details, but it sends you an email that you need to confirm. The easiest way is if you already have a Gmail ID that you can sign in, then that's the best way. But nonetheless, you can see me what I'm doing. I'm just going to log in now. I already have an account. And what I'm going to show you very quickly is, first, the discovery problem from the point that I want to categorize all my APIs. Okay, so here you can see that, Dave, this perhaps answers your question partially. If I have too many APIs, and let's say I have built a marketplace that I'm enabling to my customers and partners, then perhaps categorizing these APIs according to different industry makes sense. But let's say you are a company who has a handful of vendors. Maybe you want to categorize according to the vendors. There are many ways you can categorize. Now, the questions I wanted to answer based on Dave's question was, for example, Twitter API. This is a third-party API that I did not build. Now, what are some of the things I can do from a compliance perspective, from a security perspective? Let me show you that. So the first thing is I see, okay, this is a Twitter API, which version, which could be problematic with a lot of organizations, because as APIs evolve, they want to see, okay, has API response change and whatnot. So tracking version is important. Where it is hosted, what are the terms of services, which tells me what needs to be compliant when I'm using this. Not only that, but let's say I want to see the use case that if I use this API, what would be the data that will go in, what data would come out, and whether I can imagine that situation or so. So here, I'm actually going to make a live call to this API. And here, let's say I'm using this API into one of my products, and I need these feeds to do sentiment analysis. So my context is I want to see what kind of data would come in from there. So let's say I want to collect feeds that are related to ISACA. Everybody knows what Twitter platform is. And this particular API, what it does is it collects the latest tweets given that query that I just showed it to you. So here you can see the system of record. And this is, you can see my latest call that I just made. And I can see here, what was my input, what were the responses that came with that, basically the tweets, and so on and so forth. So you can see the latest tweets and all that. Let's say you, as a compliance expert, you are concerned that this API may bring personal information, right? So you want to advise your product teams or engineering team saying that, look, go ahead, use this API in our product, but make sure that we are not violating privacy of individuals. So you want to conduct some sort of a PII analysis on this. So here, I'm showing you a quick analysis on the data feed that I just received, which tells me that if I use Twitter API, it would contain people's names, screen names, and whatnot. And I might have my internal policy which says, okay, we can use the Twitter feeds, but we should anonymize those feeds because we do not want to, get into some sort of trouble attributing these comments to individuals and so on and so forth. Now, I think you get the point, what I'm trying to make. Other aspects of compliance that you may want to check is, for example, where it is hosted. Okay, so let's say it was an image processing API, and you are giving images and it is returning you back what are the objects? Is it a man? Is it a woman? Or whatever the image processing API is doing. Now, your image is your data. You're concerned where my data will be stored when I call these APIs, right? So from a data sovereignty perspective, knowing where exactly this is going to be stored is going to help you as well, right? So that's another point. Now, let's say I checked my PII analysis. I did my other aspects. Now I want to see what Twitter is telling me in terms of the terms of services. I may have a commercial agreement with them, but Twitter may have these terms of services on top of that, asking you to be compliant with it, right? And there could be a number of reasons why they are doing that. And the challenge here is for you as a compliance or a licensing expert, they may change these terms of services at any point in time. And surprisingly, they are saying they have just changed it today. So let's say you use this Twitter API 5 months ago. Now you have to worry about, what has changed. What should I detect and all that. Now you will appreciate the fact that, this is something a developer may not be able to understand and do that. I mean, they are not lawyers, right? Or even a compliance expert may not be able to do it because, it's a lot of legal stuff is there. So a licensing person may help. If we give certain tools in the hands of the developers that can actually do that analysis for them as an upfront analysis, that would help a lot of organizations. For example, my argument is just like security is a collective responsibility, compliance is a collective responsibility. You cannot expect, the auditors to worry about everything. If things are not in shape, they're going to trickle down. So to show that philosophical view, what I'm showing you right now here is take these terms of services and through some AI technology we built, I'm telling you, these are some of the things you should worry about. For example, these are your permissions. This is what you can do with my Twitter API. These are, if you're doing it, these are your obligations. By the way, don't do these things, right? So prohibitions. So having this kind of analysis can help you become more compliant. And also the other problem that I challenged was, these could change at any point in time. If you have one API, 10 APIs, how many times you go do this? Do you go every 6 months? And so on and so forth. Dave, looks like you have a question. Please go ahead. Do you have a question?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I did not.
Okay.
My dog and my cat are wanting to
They needed your attention.
participate. Yeah. So you're seeing my stiff arm. My apologies.
No problem. No problem at all. All right. So I think you get the point. So now last piece I want to show you is perhaps from a security point of view that let's say you may not be able to do this on external APIs. For example, running a security test. Let's say you want to check authentication, authorization. So here I'm showing you one way where I ran authentication tests, I ran injection tests, I checked the rate limit test. So this tells me how robust this API is. And at the end of the day, I want to have a report card of all my APIs in a way. Sorry, wrong button. I pressed the wrong button, cancel. Yeah, so basically I want to have a report card which tells me, did I pass all those test cases or not? Okay, so if there is an authentication problem, of course, we would tell how it is failed and so on and so forth. So the idea is you can do certain things on third parties, but on your own APIs that you own already, you can do much more deeper on that, breaking those APIs and seeing before hackers break them. So I will switch my screen to the presentation again. So feel free to use this this knowledge base that I just shared with you. There are tons of APIs, hundreds and thousands of them. You can look at some of the issues I was talking about and just get familiar.
Yeah, and not a question, but that is a phenomenal resource. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Dave, for the feedback. So now let me summarize what we learn together. Now, this time, perhaps you're convinced that APIs are absolutely necessary or away from this. You will see these being increased. We already see the trends at the global scale, right? Now, we also know that APIs will be compromised. They will be broken. They will break, and they will leak data. So
Hey, Nicole, I don't know if it's on my end, but it looks like he dropped out.
Yes, I think he dropped out. Baljeet,
sorry, yeah, I don't know. My Zoom shut down. I don't know what happened. But can you guys hear me now?
Can hear
yes.
you and can see you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. My apologies. Again, I'm glad that this internet problem did not occur before. It just occurred at the end. So I'm at least happy that we have at least covered the most of it. Anyway, so let me summarize. So APIs are important. They will continue to lead the digital transformation in any organization. They are industry agnostic. You pick any industry. APIs are shaping up the digital economy in a big way. So you as a compliance expert, you as an auditor, you as a cybersecurity expert, you need to look into this. I also talked about zero trust. We can take as a inspiration model that we can apply for risk management as well. I gave a quick demo around API risk management, how we can put those pieces, look at the discovery aspect. One area which I was not able to cover was how do we solve the unknown API problem that I talked about. So maybe, Dave, that's a topic for another talk. We will be very happy to revisit that issue, but I would love to touch upon that topic in more detail at some point in time.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Great. So a bit about us. I've already included in my intro, we are an API management company. If you like what you saw and observed, if you see an opportunity for us, we will be more than happy to work with you on the side. Reach out to my colleague, Nicole. She's on the call. And feel free to reach out to Dave. He can connect you with us as well. This is my contact information. Dave, with this note, thank you so much. We are really honored that you made us part of your community. Thank you to the audience as well for being with us in this afternoon. Back to you for your final thoughts.
No, this is fantastic. And I apologize you get the ISACA logo. When the connection was dropping out a little bit, I thought it might have been on my end. So I turned the camera off just to see if it would help with the bandwidth. And because you're host, I'm not able to re-enable my camera, but so I give you the logo. But it does look like we've been able to answer any of the questions that the attendees had. But I just want to say thank you, because where in the world where I live, you hear a lot of the headlines of, how important and potentially vulnerable APIs are or can be, but this not only goes into detail more about why you're providing resources that can be actionable for people to be able to help themselves. So I think that's fantastic, and I grabbed both of the links that you shared. And we'll share those with the community as well. And ironically, because I think a lot of this is still very new and kind of being figured out in real time. Like, for example, just in my own experience, I was introduced to a new client that I'll be supporting as a vCISO, and most of their stuff is cloud SaaS based. I haven't had a chance to talk to them yet about their level of API dependency, but we were talking about third-party risk management, how they're held accountable. and how in turn we can work together to make their partners more accountable. And it was just the surface to what you're sharing here. So speaking for myself, I learned a ton, and find it even more valuable that you make those resources available.
Yeah, no, so glad to hear all that. And absolutely, you know, SBOM, you might be hearing this term a lot. There is a mandated timeline by which, at least if you're doing business with feds, you must have those SBOMs, and not only just that needs to capture, you know, libraries, but also software, the services that you're connected to.
Yeah.
That is to say APIs. And details around those. So absolutely, very important topic. We had 1 hour session, so this is a topic quite vast. We have more opportunities where we can engage with the community more. We just FYI for you and your community, we also ran some training sessions with the IIA and ISACA members very recently, you know, 3 or 4 chapters, you know, looking at API risk management training, typically 2 to 4 hours. I hope this is something we can do for your chapter as well in the future. And we are working with the ISACA board to make this accredited training, right? Of course, they can get CP credits from those sessions, but we are also planning to issue certificates for those training, which could be useful for them for their professional growth. So happy to chat more about that at a later date, but that was just FYI for you and your community.
No, that is fantastic, and just even more great stuff to learn about and everything. So yeah, anyway that and to everybody attending, that's why I was saying in the beginning, if you have any organizations or academia that you're a part of or that you know of that can benefit from this information, please reach out to myself or Dr. Baljeet or Nicole as well. I know that they're really trying to get the word out to try and help make things a safer community. So please know that that door's open as well for everybody.
Thank you so much, Dave. I need to jump to my other meeting now, but thank you once again for the invite. Nicole, you can stay and still interact with Dave and the rest of the colleagues, but I'll drop the call now. I'll make you host so that the call doesn't end once I drop. Let me see if I can give the handle back to you, Dave.
Yeah, if you right click on the logo, you'll say make host. And
yeah, I made you host.
And indeed you did. Okay, well, thank you again so much.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, guys. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Cool. And Nicole, is there anything that you would like to add in closing as well?
Yes, of course. So since you learned a lot about APIs today, I encourage you to use also our community platform. It's open and it's free for any ISACA member that wants to use it. You can run API calls for free. You can do testing, and there's other resources in there that you can check out. So I won't reveal all the information.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, and again, to everybody, this took over a year for us to finally be able to make happen. So super excited about it. And Nicole, I'll keep in touch. I'll reach out outside of this for some other stuff that we can do moving forward, because anything that we can do on the chapter's behalf, you can count us in.
Thank you so much, Dave. I really look forward to us working together more often.
Oh, fantastic. Likewise, very much. And then if we don't, just to kind of be respectful of everybody's time, if you have any other questions, drop them in the Q&A. We'll give that another minute. And if not, we'll let everybody get back onto their day. But thanks for checking in. This was great. And it doesn't look like we are getting any, so we can go ahead. I think we can go ahead and wrap, let everybody go. And thank you again. Look forward to seeing everybody next month. And Nicole, again, yeah, I'll follow up with you. But thank you so much. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, no, we got an excellent topic and excellent speaker comment. So Nicole, if you can pass that on to Dr. Baljeet.
I will surely do.
Awesome. Thank you, Patricia. Okay, cool. We'll let everybody go then, and a great rest of the day and week to everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.